Welcome once more to the Library of M. We will continue reading Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen. Freedom. Lisa had run away. We were sad because she kept her spirits up. She was funny. Lisa. I can't think of her without smiling, even now. The worst was that she was always caught and dragged back, dirty, with wild eyes that had seen freedom. She would curse her captors, and even the thought old-timers had to laugh at the names she made up. Cheese pussy, and another favorite, you schizophrenic bat. Usually, they found her within a day. She couldn't get far on foot, with no money. But this time she seemed to have lucked out. On the third day, I heard someone in the nursing station saying APB on the phone. All Points Bulletin. Lisa wouldn't be hard to identify. She rarely ate and she never slept. So she was thin and yellow the way people get when they don't eat. And she had huge bags under her eyes. She had long dark dull hair that she fastered with a silver clip. She had the longest fingers I've ever seen. This time, when they brought her back, they were almost as angry as she was. Two big men had her arms, and a third guy had her by the hair, pulling so that Lisa's eyes bugged out. Everybody was quiet, including Lisa. They took her down to the end of the hall, to seclusion, while we watched. We watched a lot of things. We watched Cynthia come back crying from electric shock once a week. We watched Polly shiver after being grabbed in ice-cold sheets. One of the worst things we watched, though, was Lisa coming out of seclusion 2 days later. To begin with, they cut her nails down to the quick. She'd had beautiful nails, which she worked on, polishing, shaping, buffing. They said her nails were sharps. And they have taken away her belt. Lisa always wore a cheap bivet belt, the kind made by Indians on reservations. It was green, with red triangles on it, and it had belonged to her brother Jonas, the only one in her family still in touch with her. Her mother and father wouldn't visit her because she was a sociopath, or so said Lisa. They took away the belt so she couldn't hang herself. They didn't understand that Lisa would never hang herself. They let her out of seclusion. They gave her back her belt, and her nails started to grow in again. But Lisa didn't come back. She just sat and watched TV with the worst of us. Lisa had never watched TV. She had nothing but scorn for those who did. "It's shit," she yelled, sticking her head into the TV room. "You're already like robots. It's making you worse." Sometimes she turned off the TV and stood in front of it, daring somebody to turn it on. But the TV audience was mostly catatonics and depressives, who were disinclined to move. After 5 minutes, which was about as long as she could stand still, Lisa would be off on another project. And when the person on checks came around, she would turn the TV on again. Since Lisa hadn't slept for the 2 years she'd been with us, the nurses had given up telling her to go to bed. Instead, she had a chair of her own in the hallway, just like the night staff, where she'd sit and work on her nails. She made wonderful cocoa, and at 3 o'clock in the morning she made cocoa for the night staff and anybody else who was up. She was calmer at night. Once I asked her, "Lisa, how come you don't rush around and yell at night?" "I need rest too," she said. "Just because I don't sleep doesn't mean I don't rest." Lisa always knew what she needed. She would say, "I need a vacation from this place," and then she would run away. When she got back, we would ask her how it was out there. "It's a mean world," she said. She was usually glad enough to be back. "There's nobody to take care of you out there." Now she had nothing. She spent all her time in the TV room. She watched prayers and test patterns and hours of late-night talk shows and early morning news. Her chair in the hall was unoccupied, and nobody got cocoa. "Are you giving Lisa something?" I asked the person on checks. "You know we can't discuss medication with patients." I asked the head nurse. I'd known her a while, since before she was the head nurse. But she acted as though she would always be the head nurse. "We can't discuss medication, you know that." "Why bother asking?" said Georgina. "She's completely blotto. Of course they're giving her something." Cynthia didn't think so. "She still walks okay," she said. "I don't," said Polly. She didn't. She walked with her arms stuck out in front of her, her red and white hands drooping from her wrist and her feet shuffling along the floor. The cold packs hadn't worked. She still screamed at night until I put her on something. "It took a while," I said. "You walked okay when they started it." "Now I don't," said Polly. She looked at her hands. I asked Lisa if they were giving her something, but she wouldn't look at me. And this way we all passed through a month or two, Lisa and the catatonics in the TV room, Polly walking like a motorized corpse, Cynthia crying after electroshock. "I'm not sad," she explained to me, "but I can't help crying." And me and Georgina an old double sweet. We were considered the healthiest. When spring came, Lisa began spending a little more time outside the TV room. She spent it in the bathroom, to be exact, but at least it was a change. I asked the person on checks, "What's she doing in the bathroom?" This was a new person. "Am I supposed to open bathroom doors too?" I did what we often did to new people. "Somebody could hang herself in there in a minute. Where do you think you are anyhow? A boarding school?" Then I put my face close to hers. They didn't like that, touching us. I noticed Lisa went to a different bathroom every time. There were 4 and she made the circuit daily. She didn't look good. Her belt was hanging off her and she looked yellower than usual. "Maybe she's got dysentery," I said to Georgina, but Georgina thought she was just blotto. One morning in May, we were eating breakfast when we heard a door slam. Then Lisa appeared in the kitchen. Later for that TV, she said, she poured herself a big cup of coffee just as she used to do in the mornings and sat down at the table. She smiled at us, and we smiled back. "Wait," she said. We heard feet running and voices saying things like, "What in the world?" and "How in the world?" Then the head nurse came into the kitchen. "You did this," she said to Lisa. We went to see what it was. She had grabbed all the furniture, some of it holding catatonics and the TV and the sprinkler system on the ceiling in toilet paper. Yards and yards of it floated and dangled, bunched and dropped on everything, everywhere. It was magnificent. "She wasn't blotto," I said to Georgina. "She was bloating." We had a good summer, and Lisa told us lots of stories about what she had done those 3 days she was free. Thank you so much for listening to the Library of M. Please, if you like the content, subscribe and leave a comment and share. See you next time.